Hello. Today I thought it might be a fun idea to do a little sort of a tutorial on how to hand sew because I may have no skills when it comes to um, machine sewing. I am pretty I guess like experienced with hand sewing. I'm still not the best hand sewer. Like it's kind of like the sewing equivalent of having a bad handwriting. You may have a lot of practice, but it still might be a little sloppy. But at the very least, I've made progress since I started out. Because, see, I've been sewing since I was a child, since I was maybe 6. Because I liked to make when I was a kid, I liked to make little toys for myself by sewing them. And I could, like, make my own toys, whatever I wanted, and that was how I got started. And that's why sometimes I sew my own clothing now. So, and I also have to make repairs to garments that need repairs. So first I'm going to show you how to thread the needle. So, this is the thread, this is the needle. You got to put it through the eye. Now if it's hard for you to put it through the eye, then you should lick the thread like that. If you're not afraid to do that. Some people might be grossed out by that, but if you're not averse to licking some thread, then I would recommend it because it makes it easier for it to go through the eye. However, I didn't need to this time. You see, the hole in the needle is called the eye of the needle, for those who don't know. This is a really good life skill to have if you need to ever sew anything, this is a wonderful skill to have. So, now you see I've got these ends here, so you just want to tie those. And you want to tie the knot a few times so that it's nice and secure. This is important for, keeping the stitches together and not falling apart or getting, like getting detached, Like it keeps them in place. It kind of anchors them to the thing that you're sewing, the fabric, Now you want to cut the strings. Sewing is great for if you want to repair anything or if you want to make your own stuff. DIY is nice, you get to have things that are unique to you that nobody else has. That's the beauty of it. But you can also, like, take inspiration from other people, like any other kind of art form, you build from it, or you have your own unique ideas, and that's really appealing for many people, myself included. I just kind of I just throw the little scraps on the floor. It's like two tiny little pieces of string. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Look how I keep my space. But it used to be worse. But yeah. Anyway. So, see, this is the first thing I'm sewing. This might be difficult, to be honest. Um, yeah, this might be really difficult. If I can, I think I can sew it. I think I can do it. But it'll be hard. So I have to sew, this thing, you see, this part came off. This is a bracelet of mine, and it's got, like, kind of thick material. But I do have a thick needle as well, and those are good for thicker, fabrics. As you can see, my needle is kind of on the larger side, so that's okay because it's suited for this task. I hope that I can do it. Yeah, yeah, it's going through. It's going through. Alright, so yeah, you pull out your needle like that, you know, pull it through. Um, this is the type of sewing that I'm doing right now. There's different names for the stitches, but I don't really know what they are. I just stitch differently for different scenarios, I guess. I mean, you kind of just figure it out, like this is how you do it for this one, but for other like uh areas of a garment or an accessory or a, stuffed animal or whatever you're doing, it would be like you would sew it differently. Like you would sew it more like this way where you go through, like you make the thread go above it like that, and it goes, you see, it it goes above it like that, and then you poke through, and then the needle, see, the needle would come through on the bottom like that, but that's not how we're doing it. That's not how we're doing it. I was just demonstrating to show you the alternate ways that sewing can be done. Hopefully that made sense, but it's okay if not. I can kind of there's a second thing I'm gonna do after this to really like show you, but see the stitches themselves, they go through like that. That's how you do it. This part, I guess it's not too difficult. Sometimes, oh, sometimes your thread will bunch up like that a little bit. So when that happens, don't pull on it with both strings. That's a bad idea. That'll make that'll make your thread break. Because as you can see, when you're sewing, you're gonna want to see like two individual strands like that, because it's one long strand that you tied on the end. So now it's like a loop that's been closed by a knot on one end, and that's why, it's like two strands. Um, and if if your thread is bunching up, then you want to pull on it on one side, and if that side doesn't budge, then you try the other side, and then if it pulls through, then you're okay. If it doesn't, you might have a knot in your thread, which is a problem because, that can create issues. That'll happen if you make your thread too long. If your thread is too long, then it's more likely to like bunch up and get little knots and things, but it's like kind of tempting to make long thread because you don't want to keep like remaking these, you know, like it's just because every single time you put new thread in the needle, then it's like you have to tie another knot and then another knot and another because you want to make the knot nice and big so that it, works and does its job of keeping the thread in place, So it's tempting to make a long amount of thread, but I would discourage that because of the knots problem. It can go into knots, and that's an issue, and it can make it so that the thread breaks, and you in worst case scenario you end up kind of wasting some because you can't really tie it on the end, and then you just have to throw away all of your progress, and that's much more of a hassle than if you just use smaller strands and then tie them on the end, because those don't create the knot problems. And they're sometimes salvageable, like I said, but not always. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, this is an issue. So I'm gonna go through one last time. Hopefully this will be strong enough now. Well, I think I'm gonna do it a few more times actually. I really want this to be strong enough because I love this bracelet. This is like a rainbow bracelet with a little thing there. My mom got this for me. It was a kind gesture. I think she's making an effort to be nicer to me, and so am I, and so, you know, I mean, yeah, I'm talking to her more, and she isn't as critical of me as she has been in the past, I guess, so that's nice. Yeah, I can feel this, it's a bit of personal stuff, but it's just, this reminds me of her because she got it for me, very recently, so it's like, it kind of reminds me of our relationship and everything, and it's cool that we're on better terms now. That's a good thing. Um, I mean, hopefully I won't regret it. Hopefully she won't regret it. Hopefully things can stay good between us. But for the meantime, they are, and that's alright. So, yeah, I've got this rainbow bracelet, and I sewed it up, so now what you want to do is tie another knot at the end. You want to tie your knot as close to this part as possible, like as close to the thing itself. So in order to do that, you need to like pinch the end. It's really hard for me to do that while also holding it up to the screen, but I'll just try and show you. You gotta pinch the end like how my hand here is doing. Um, then you put your needle through that, and you hold the thread, you hold it, you pinch it like that, and you pull it through, and then you've got a knot that's pretty close to the end there. Um, you can see the tiny knots right where my finger is. My middle finger is, sort of. Yeah. So, then you keep doing that until you've got a nice tight knot, a nice, sizely knot so that can really hold your stuff together. I like to re-tie it like 2, 3, 4 times just to make sure. I'm very careful. That's the experience. It's taught me that can be a good idea. Extra precautions are a good idea. Because, like, um, what's it called? What's it called? clothing malfunction, fashion malfunction, well, that kind of thing. That's happened to me before. Wardrobe malfunction, that's the term. Yeah, that's happened to me before, and it's like embarrassing if it's like something revealing, because then it's like, oh God, you know. But that hasn't happened to me a lot. Um, Still, it's like that is a risk factor. So if you're sewing something, just to be on the safe side, try to take these precautions like I've taught you. Don't use string that's too long. Thread that's too long when you thread the needle. Um, like don't cut off a piece that's too long. You know what I mean? From the thread spool like this. And don't what's the other? I know I had other things. Yeah, like make sure to tie your knots multiple times so that it doesn't get undone, Precautions like that. Um, so I'm gonna sew a second thing now with the remaining thread. I'm tying the knot, tying these knots here again and again. Tying the knot, oh my god. No, I'm not getting married. So, this Croy has an ass, an anus, a butthole, because I cut off their tail. The reason is, it's okay, axolotls can grow their tail back, and indeed Croy will, but it's just that before it was on wrong, like it was horizontal. It was horizontal, you see, like that's how the tail was, and that's not how a real axolotl's tail is, where it's like that. It's supposed to be like this. Vertical, as you can see, vertical. That's the correct positioning for an axolotl's tail. That's the correct anatomy positioning of an axolotl's body. So, I care about that. I think that adherence to the realities is very important for a little chibi character like this. Yeah, yeah. No fingers, no toes, but I'm fine with that. But the tail, oh, that's where I draw the line, apparently. No, for real though. I don't know, man. I don't know. But I'm sewing up the hole, his little booty. It's in purple thread, which doesn't match his body color, which is pink, but I couldn't really find any pink thread, so I just don't really care, I guess. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Purple is cute. Purple is cute. Croy doesn't care. Why would Croy care? And it makes it look nice. It's like, oh, you took care of the toy, you know? And I did. I did. Croy says, this is a good surgery. I like this surgery, and I'm not in pain and I'm not suffering because I got anesthesia from Sid. Yes, you did, Croy. I don't actually have anesthesia. I put Croy under a spell using my powers, which I do have, so, now, that's much more plausible, isn't it? Perhaps I'm on anesthesia, too. No, no. No, I'm not. No. Anyway, tying it up, or sewing it up, rather. So, you know, there's a little bit of stuffing coming out, and it's hard for me to avoid that while also, like, pulling it up to the screen. Like, the balancing act isn't so easy, but I don't know, I guess that's the sort of sacrifice you make when you make a little video like this. There's like a glaring effect with the light. Or am I just tripping? Am I just tripping? Perhaps I'm just tripping. Can't tell. It seems like it's glaring. Oh well. I'm almost done sewing this part. See, sometimes it's good to go back and sew, like, over the same spot multiple times. So, like, this line here, this seam I just sewed, I'm gonna go back over that because it's a very small area, and I want to make sure it's nice and reinforced because it would be a shame if Croy were to come apart. That's something you don't want, That's terrible. And then after that, I'll sew the tail back on in the vertical position, so then it'll be complete. when you sew, or rather, when you tie, sorry, there's a bit of like the old thread still sticking out. Let me just cut that. Um, when you tie the thread, it's good to have about this amount of space, like maybe 3 or 4 inches of thread for you to like have room to tie the knot, you know? Like even this is a little tight. Even this is a little tight because see there's not a lot there, but still it's doable. But if you don't leave yourself a lot of space, it's impossible to tie the right knot. Like you'll have to there are ways around that. Like if you don't want to do it the way I'm doing where you tie it with the needle, then you can just cut the thread and then tie the strands with your hands rather than, including the needle. That can make it easier because the needle is long and it's like you have to incorporate its length. But still, like if you do the hands method, it might be a tighter seam, and that can be a little bit of an issue, uh, potentially, because a tight seam is more likely to burst or rip. So you got to take that into consideration. That's especially relevant with like I don't know, a seam where it would have a lot of movement if it were on a piece of clothing, or an item like this where it's full of stuffing, you know? Um, yeah, so this is Croy without a tail. Oh my god, tail surgery. Bottom surgery? What? That's not what bottom surgery is. Anyway, so, gonna tie this up again. You tie with both strings. You don't tie the strings together like you normally would. You tie the like well, it, you tie them together but in a different way. Like see, you hold them both together. See how there's two there, but you hold them like they're one thing and you tie it up like this. There you go. I think that was a pretty good visual. I think you could really see what I was doing there. I could see it on the screen. So I think I did a good job in that regard. Here's hoping, you know? Because I'm trying to be helpful. I think this is a good life skill that others could benefit from. And as a punk, I enjoy DIY. I'd love to spread the fundamentals at the very least, teaching you how to hand sew, because maybe you don't know how, you know? It's a skill I kind of take for granted. Like I forget that some people don't really know how. Um, and many do. It's not like I'm, the chosen one, but it's just that it's like, well, it's a great skill to have, you know? Uh, sew a man a shirt, he wears a shirt for a day. Teach a man to sew, he's the guy. He's the man, you know? He's, wow, amazing. Damn, Tony, you really DIY'd those shorts, man. That's so crazy. Wow. You mean to tell me you hand sewed your own shorts? I don't think it'd be easy to hand sew shorts. I've never done that. I've sewn shirts. Like, I've made my own shirts out of scraps. That's the most I've ever done when it comes to, like, high level high level difficulty things. Like mostly I just sew patches and accessories onto other pre-made garments. And then one time I kind of made my own shirt, which I made a clothes show offering about that. That was a year or two ago, you know? But anyway, I digress. Just, it's, there's a, there's like levels of difficulty when it comes to sewing, and shorts would be pretty high level difficulty because it's like, well, I think clothes that are like pants or shorts where it has the crotch area, that's harder for people to like really design it properly. Because if you don't get it just right, with just enough like wiggle room but not too much, it can look stupid or it can be uncomfortable. Like it's just this very delicate balancing act when it comes to that part of the body, I suppose. I know that because, not because I've tried to sew those kinds of garments, but because I knew someone personally who also sewed, and she's an adult woman, but she described that part as being difficult, even though she also uses a sewing machine. So she's at an advantage in many ways, and yet still, um, doesn't quite I mean, she at the very least acknowledges that it's difficult to do that, you know. So yeah, but not impossible. I think she has sewn pants and things before, I'm pretty sure. So I sewed that first stitch right into the tail. Now I'm going to go in and sew it onto Croy's lower region like that. Oh, the thread got wrapped around his foot. That's okay. Not a problem. Not a problem. Yeah, it kind of wants to get caught on his like fringes and extremities, but it's just, you just gotta watch out for that. Be aware of your objects like shapes and things, and just, you know, be ready for things to get caught, and don't panic because that'll make it more tangled and all that. So, pretty simple stuff. I think hand sewing is pretty easy, There's a reason why I took a liking to it at such a young age. And I don't mean to condescend to anybody who doesn't get the hang of it immediately, because I didn't. I had problems with it as well. But at the same time, I don't want to discourage you because it's very enjoyable. It's relaxing. This is sort of a zen activity for me. There's not a lot of activities I can do where I can just kind of unwind or multitask. But this one, I guess, it's like I can do this while I do other things, and I don't really have to stress out so much. And it's lovely. I really enjoy it. It's a sort of, it just helps me relax and it keeps my mind in a flow state. I just don't really worry about much. It's just a sort of basic enrichment. It's calming? That kind of thing. I think this is another seam where I'm gonna go back over it one time. Like I went over it the first time and then I'm gonna re-stitch it the second time. So we've already got the tail attached. The tail is already attached, yeah. But the seam seems kind of weak, pun intended. We gotta make that seam stronger, so we're gonna go over it a second time. This is not necessary for every single time that you sew, but you kind of gotta just judge, like, which things do you think would be more likely to break, and if you know, it's your call at the end of the day. Some seams I don't think you need to like double sew it the way I'm doing, and I just came up with that term. I don't know if that's like an official term or whatever, but you don't have to sew twice, like sew the seam twice for everything, but I guess just use your instincts. Like do you think that it was good enough the first time? Do you think that just the location in which you're sewing needs extra attention? I think this location does because it's not only like the tail wants should be the tail needs to be on there. It's also like there was a hole there because I had to cut the first seam in order to get this little operation done on Croy. So uh in other words, you kind of just got to assess the situation. Like not all things call for the same techniques, but they often do. Or well, they sometimes do. Yeah, like whatever. Oh, see, the string's trying to get wrapped around again. There you go. Just a few more stitches, and then we'll be good to go. I think it's okay. Like I said, I think it's fine that I'm using purple thread. I don't always care if my thread matches the thing. I don't mind having visible thread because it looks punk to me. It looks cool. And yeah, visible thread is cool for Croy. Croy doesn't mind punk things. Croy loves punk things. I mean, look at the sort of, what do they call it when it's like the opposite of a mohawk? I literally don't know. Am I a fake punk? Like this is when it's the opposite of a mohawk, where it's like there are two things on the side and nothing in the middle. Oh man, I'm a fake punk. Cause I've never had a mohawk. I've never gone that route. I've always tried to like spike up my hair when I have long hair or when I have like short hair or medium hair, but it's always like hair that goes down, but I just make it go up in the top and I make it scruffily around the sides and the back and everything. But not the same as on the level of a mohawk, you know? I know there's a thing called like a I feel like no, I don't know what I'm talking about. I know about Liberty Spikes. Those are very impressive. Those are very impressive. I know about Death Hawks. That's like a kind of goth mohawk thing. It's like for goth punks, and those are cool. Um, so now I'm gonna sew up the end there, and then we'll be done. The funny thing about trying to teach someone how to sew is that it's kind of difficult without like screwing it up because you gotta show them everything. Like, I feel like this would go the same way in person as it is on camera. You have to show things with your hands, but in order to, like, make it visible, it's kind of like, it throws off the rhythm. Like, you just get into a rhythm of it. Instincts after a while. Um, but I know that isn't encouraging when it's like, yeah, you should totally try this thing that only gets easier after you've done it a long time. That's discouraging for a lot of people. But I still think, if you want to try this sort of thing, you should try it. And I will say the seam feels nice and strong now. Croy looks great. New Croy. Croy, how do you feel? You got plastic surgery, man. Wake up, wake up. Wake up, how's it going? Apparently that's Croy. Apparently that's how Croy talks. We've never really spoken before outside of telepathy, man. I didn't know your voice was like that and also went through my mouth. Oh, alright. Well, Croy tells me that that's just how things have always been. Also, Croy says they feel great, for the record. They feel great. They feel happy from the surgery. The surgery has gone fine. Happy little Croy doing a little dance. Doing a little dance. Wee! Wee! Yeah, yeah, We out here, we balling, we staying balling. We are persistently and consistently balling out here. So, yes, indeed we are. I just thought I would teach you and sort of enlighten you about that. So I did my bracelet and I gave Croy a little surgery. Croy feels beautiful and Croy looks beautiful. I think this is cool. Some people might be against it, but I think Croy is lovely. Bottom surgery achieved. It's a trans allegory that I used trans language directly to describe. It's fine. Alright. I love you. Have a nice day.